In today's video, I'm going to share my rental apartment hunting experience as an American living abroad in Sydney, Australia. I'm going to share all of the tips and advice and things that I learned as someone who's actually been through it. If you want to jump around a little bit, I will put the timestamps in the description. But I wanted to start with a quick overview of the Sydney rental market in general in case you're unfamiliar. This is specifically for someone who's looking for their own rental and their own lease, not someone who's looking for roommates like as a sublease on an existing rental. So the Sydney rental market is extremely competitive. Things also move very quickly in this market, so places that are listed will be gone sometimes within a couple of days. It's also one of the most expensive places to live in the world. Rentals here are usually available immediately or very quickly, so it's not really something that you can plan for in advance. Usually you're only left with like 1 or 2 weeks to find your next place you're gonna live. In Australia, you have to inspect a place in person before you actually apply to rent it. I've heard that you can also send a friend in your place to like check in for you, but for the most part, you definitely want to actually see the apartment because sometimes the photos online can be a little bit misleading. Inspections are almost always on Saturdays, so things get very hectic and your schedule will fill up quickly. Originally, I was thinking, oh, if I miss the inspection, I can just book in with the agent to see it another time, but a lot of these places are going so quickly that if you don't go see them at that open Saturday inspection, they're probably already gonna be off the market. Once you inspect the property, for the most part, you're gonna wanna apply as soon as possible if you're interested. So we applied literally immediately after walking out of the inspection. Applications are gonna be a little bit different depending on the platform that they use and the information that they're looking for, but generally they're interested in your income, rental history, and references, which as someone coming from overseas, I did not have any Australian rental history, any Australian income, or any Australian references. So that definitely makes things a lot harder. It's common here to make offers on rentals. And in this market, I think it's a lot more likely that you would need to offer over asking than under. Okay, now that we've kind of covered the basics of the Australian rental market, let's chat about what we were specifically looking for in our apartment before we get into the places we toured, how we offered, and how we got our current apartment that I am sitting in right now. We wanted to do at least 1 bedroom. Ideally, we wanted to have either a study or a layout where we could create a kind of office space because my boyfriend works remotely and takes a lot of calls from home. We also wanted a place with a lot of natural light, especially because I do film all of my YouTube videos basically from home. Something that's really common in new builds is this kind of like one wall, tiny kitchen, and we cook a lot at home, we meal prep. We really wanted to have a kitchen that had enough space to add an island or already had an island, in-unit laundry, a hookup for laundry, or even just laundry within the building, a car spot, or just to be in an area where there was reasonable street parking. This next one was surprisingly difficult to find. Non-carpet flooring in the living room and dining room area. And then the last thing we were hoping for is just somewhere that was accessible to public transportation, ideally the train, because we absolutely love the train system in Sydney and it's such a great way to get around. And then we had a few things that we considered an added bonus but weren't totally essential, but we were keeping our eyes peeled to see what we could find. AC was one of those things for us. Despite what you may think, because I am an American, I'm not like a run AC all day, every day kind of person. That said, having it at night, I find just to be so life-changing, especially because I know it does get quite hot here during the summer. It was an absolute dream of mine to find a place with a second bathroom. Having 2 showers since we work out together is kind of life-changing. Otherwise, one person has to sit out in the dining room in their own sweat waiting for their turn to take a shower, and it's not a great time. Our absolute dream was to live somewhere that was within walking distance of the beach. As we started looking at the rental market, we both were kind of like, you know, that's probably not gonna happen because the prices are just insane, but we wanted to try, see if we could find a good deal. Okay, I bet the Australians watching are thinking, wow, that's a lot to ask in this market. And I bet the Americans watching are confused because a lot of the things I've mentioned are kind of just expected in American rentals. The website you are gonna wanna use if you're apartment hunting is called realestate.au. So that is where we did all of our online apartment shopping. When it came to different areas we were looking at, we were very open to basically anywhere that was near-ish to the water or to the beach. We looked at places around the harbor, we looked at all of the eastern beaches, the northern beaches, the Shire. I think we looked at actually hundreds of apartments. We only ended up going to 6 inspections because obviously if you're gonna go all the way out there to see something, we wanted to make sure it was somewhere that we really liked. I'm gonna walk you through the apartments that we toured, and when I have footage, I will add it, but I didn't film at every apartment because some of these were still inhabited, and I realized how odd it would be if I filmed someone's home and their belongings without their knowledge and then posted it online. It just felt so weird to me. So first place we toured was in Bondi Beach. It was very close to the water. It was $1,200 per week. Truly, these prices are shocking. But with this apartment, I think you were paying for how close it was to the beach more than anything. The kitchen and the bathroom were both very recently renovated and they were beautiful, like brand new. It was 2 bedrooms plus a study, and I think the added study was a really nice extra space, but I found the study itself to be a little bit of a weird vibe in there. I don't know what it was. I wasn't rocking with it. This was an older apartment, so this layout was many smaller rooms, which made the apartment feel a lot smaller because it wasn't like an open layout, open concept. Even though it was only like 70 degrees Fahrenheit that day, it was boiling hot in there, so I didn't think it had great ventilation, and there was no AC, no parking spot. There was only 1 bathroom, which wasn't a deal breaker, but wasn't ideal for us either. And at this price point, we just could not make it make sense. We just felt like we were missing a lot of the amenities that we wanted, and it was super close to the beach, but it was also nestled between a lot of other apartments, so your view was basically just other people's apartments, which I didn't love. I think we were both just like, if we're gonna be paying this much money, it needs to be a place that we absolutely love. We would rather just go somewhere else, be further from the beach. So we crossed that one off of our list. The next place we toured was in Queens Park, so a little bit inland from the kind of Bondi area. This was the most stunning kitchen I have ever seen in my entire life, okay? The kitchen was insane, but the bathroom was so small that Cal could barely fit in it. I'm not kidding. I mean, he is 6'5", so that's probably part of it, but it was very cramped in there. I felt like the living space was pretty cramped. It was a little bit dark. The main selling point was the kitchen. I don't know, there's just so many different vibes within Sydney. You have the downtown like CBD that's more like the city. You have Queens Park, which is so cool. It almost reminds me of Boston a little bit. And then you have the eastern beaches and the northern beaches and all these different suburbs, and each of them is just really so different. But I think we realized touring this apartment, we wanted to get closer to the beach. We wanted to be close to coffee, cafes, and the ocean, even though we understood we were probably gonna have to give some things up to make that happen. This place was $1,200 per week, and that was just shocking. It was just shocking. We looked all over the eastern beaches and we started to feel a little bit stuck because there just wasn't really anything in our price range that looked like it was gonna work for us. So we started expanding our search into different areas and different beaches in the kind of greater Sydney area. So we started looking more at the northern beaches and down south in the Shire. So we went out one day to the kind of Cronulla, Woolooware area. First thing we did was look at 3 places on Woolooware Bay. The first place we saw was $1,100 per week. So again, sticker shock. I don't have any videos because there was someone living in there and had all their stuff in there still, but this place was a stark contrast between expectations and reality, I would say. The photos made it look really luxe and beautiful and bright, and it just felt so dark in there, even though it was early afternoon and it should be the brightest time of day. I don't know, it felt a little claustrophobic to me. And I think I realized throughout this day of touring these units in the bigger buildings, I'm actually not a big building person. I know some people love it. I mean, look at New York City. So many people are thriving in these big buildings with all these amenities, and I understand there's so many benefits to living in one of these bigger buildings. Like, all these units had access to pools and gyms, and there's a full mall at the bottom of these buildings, so you can walk down to the bottom of your building and do all your grocery shopping and literally go to Priceline. It's crazy. It's crazy. And also in the high rises, you get a stunning view of the ocean because you're up so high. So I totally get it, but there was something about it that just wasn't feeling right to me. The next place we saw was also inhabited. It was listed with no photos, so we were like, why not? We're already in the area. Let's pop in and see it. It was $900 per week, so a little bit cheaper. This place was very dark. It was on a very busy part of the street, and when you open the windows, it was so loud, the sounds of the cars and everything. It was fully carpeted, which wasn't what we were looking for, so I think for me, immediately I was kind of like, this probably isn't gonna work, but it did have 2 full bedrooms, 2 full bathrooms, and a storage room. So especially at that price, I was like, we need to really, really love this place in this price range. The next apartment we saw was so beautiful. This is probably my number 2 choice out of everything that we saw. This apartment had so many windows. It was so bright, which I absolutely loved, and the view was beautiful because it was right in front of the pool. It is autumn in Australia, okay? So no one was at the pool at the time that we were touring. But going through my mind was like, okay, we have this apartment right on the pool with floor to ceiling windows, and this pool is probably gonna be packed full of people and kids and whatever all summer long. And I just felt like I would be a little bit in a fishbowl. I wouldn't like the feeling of people looking in at me if my windows were open, which I want to have my windows open. So this place was absolutely gorgeous though. It had beautiful finishes, it had high ceilings, it was so bright, 2 bedroom, 2 bathrooms, so it would be like a perfect layout for us. The kitchen was great. It was right by Woolooware Bay, which is really nice, but it wasn't a swimming beach. So that was one thing I was kind of like, it is near the water, so that is a huge plus, and there's a great running path, walking path right nearby. But in terms of actually going out to swim, laying on the sand or whatever, you would have to drive or bike down to the beach itself. One thing I didn't love is that our parking spot for this apartment would be on the 5th floor, so every time we wanted to go in and out, we would have to go up and down 5 stories, which isn't a huge deal, but again, when I'm in this price range and these places are so expensive, my standards were pretty high in terms of what I was looking for. So it wasn't perfect, but I did really like this place, and I felt like we were starting to get somewhere. This was the first place we saw that I was like, okay, maybe we can find something better, but I could see myself being really happy here. And last but certainly not least, we toured our beautiful apartment where we're sitting right now. So spoiler alert, it went really well. I think this apartment is such a steal when it comes to location, amenities. It had everything we wanted and more. Okay, so let's go through it. We have 2 bedrooms and 2 full bathrooms. Okay, one of them even has a soaking tub, which is just wild. It's about a 10-ish minute walk from the beach, which is honestly just, it was my absolute dream, and I cannot believe we actually found a place within our price range this close to the water. The apartment came with a washer and dryer, which is insane. I do not take that for granted how incredible that is. One thing I noticed when we toured, this apartment had so much built-in storage, which is amazing for us because it means we didn't have to buy as much storage furniture. It also has AC, which is so amazing. Like I said, wasn't essential, but oh my God, it's so nice to have. The kitchen in this apartment was the most beautiful kitchen out of any place I'd toured, but honestly, any place I have seen. I think it is so beautiful. The cabinets, the countertops, it is massive. Back in Utah, our kitchen was probably half the size of this kitchen. On no planet did I expect to have a kitchen this big and this beautiful. In my apartment, the windows in this apartment were incredible. Floor to ceiling windows in the living area, whatever, which is for me the most important place for natural light. I'm not in my bedroom very much, so I don't need tons of windows in there, though there is great lighting in those rooms as well. The living area, floor to ceiling windows. I'm actually sitting in front of them right now. We also have a shared rooftop with a barbecue, and it has a view of the ocean. We've been absolutely loving going up there for sunrise or sunset. And as you can see, we did manage to secure this apartment. So let's get into that and how we actually formatted our application, all of my tips and advice there. It's normal based on my research for people to offer anywhere from $10 to $50 per week over asking for places that are competitive or whatever. But when we toured this apartment, I immediately felt like it was way underpriced for the area and the amenities, and I thought it was such a good deal. So that said, we did offer $100 per week over asking. For people coming from overseas who don't have proof of income, rental history, Australian references, anything like that, offering over asking is definitely one of the ways you can make your application more interesting. We thought what we were offering was more of the market rate, market value for this apartment. I do think the fact that we are a couple applying together did help our application, so applying with more people I think is preferred generally, because when there's only one person who's on the hook for the rent, that's a little bit riskier for the owner. In our application, we did share as much information as possible to show that we would be good renters. So a huge part of it, I think, was our savings. We shared bank statements and the proof of our savings, investments, etc., because we wanted to show our ability to pay the rent even though we didn't have any Australian income. I would say if you are thinking about moving abroad, living abroad in Sydney, the best thing you can do starting right now is save up as much as possible to make your rental application more attractive. And obviously it's useful outside of just having an attractive rental application, but if you don't have a proof of income yet, having a large savings is the best thing, I think the most helpful thing that you can do. Let's get into more of my general tips, and these are all things that helped us along the way and that I would definitely recommend. Before you land, I think it's really important to start researching the different areas and suburbs you might want to live. Sydney is a huge place, so if you don't have at least some idea of the places that you want to check out, I think it can get really overwhelming. And looking at actual apartment listings in those areas is so helpful. We looked at hundreds and hundreds of listings over the last year, just browsing, poking around, and I feel like that helped us to learn what was a good deal and what wasn't a good deal, because I think when you're coming into a new rental market and you're entirely unfamiliar, it's easy to be kind of taken advantage of because you don't actually know what the pricing is and what you can expect and what you should be looking for in each area. So the more that you can hunt around in those months or weeks, whatever, leading up to your actual move to get a sense of the area and what would be a good deal, what would maybe be not a great deal, that is so helpful. It is so important to set up and fund an Australian bank account before you start apartment hunting, because you will need to pay your security deposit, holding deposit, all of that from an Australian bank account. Make sure you get that set up as soon as possible after you land, because otherwise that will hold up your ability to actually pay that deposit. Prepping your application before the inspection is pretty much essential, because especially especially if it's crowded. You want to be the first person or one of the first people to apply, because the real estate agent is probably going to go through that list, and when they find someone who gives a good offer, they're just going to take it, right? They're not going to go look at all 20 applications if they find number 3 is a great offer, you know? You'll also need references, so asking previous landlords, coworkers, whatever, if they're willing to be a reference for you in advance is a good thing to have ready to go, because they will ask for that in the application. This is so huge, and I didn't realize this until we chatted with our real estate agent after the fact. And this is something I kind of did naturally by accident. I'm just a very friendly person, but it is so important when you go to the inspections to dress nicely, come early or at the very least on time, and chat with the agents, because the relationships really matter here. I think in the States it's a little bit more transactional when it comes to rentals and whatnot, these business deals, but here in Australia, the relationship side of things is really important, and the real estate agent is sussing you out during the tour. We also asked our agent what the owner's priorities were in terms of an offer. So what is going to be more enticing to them? Would it be to offer a certain amount of months up front? Would it be to offer more on the listing price? Are they looking for a quick move-in, or do they want to delay it a little bit? Whatever, just kind of like finding out what the owner is looking for and interested in so that you can make the most compelling offer. Coming into this, we originally thought that it would be really compelling to offer more months upfront rent, but actually in talking to agents, we found that they were more so looking for offers over asking, so increasing the actual rental price. So of course, touring more places, going to more inspections is always better than less. I found my opinion changed so much actually seeing these places in person. The online photos often just do not do them justice, and it's important also obviously to see the area and walk around and just check the vibe. I tried to add a little bit of space around all of our inspections to walk around in the actual area, and really I was locked in, okay? Paying close attention to how loud it is, how busy it is, how crowded, is there any parking available? Are there cafes nearby? Where's the nearest public transportation? I had my eyes peeled during these inspections, okay? I was walking the perimeter. But yeah, if you're coming from abroad, you have to juice up your application in any way that you can. We also took our time writing a cover letter to include with our applications to make sure that the real estate agents knew a little bit about us, our background working in tech, like corporate work, what Cal does for work, what I do as well. And then we also just added a little bit about our hobbies and interests, like we're into health and fitness, we don't drink, we don't smoke or party or really do anything like that, no pets, just like little details that hopefully would be appealing to potential landlords. Obviously, you want to be honest on your cover letter, but if there's anything about you that you want to highlight that you think would be appealing, that's a good time. I would say my number one tip, and the thing I struggled with the most, is that when you find something good, you have to pounce. It's really hard because there are so many options to think, if I rent this apartment, what if something better comes up, and am I making the wrong choice? Whatever. Things move so quickly in this market, you've just got to pounce if you find something good. There's always that opportunity cost of when you secure a place, what if there is something better out there? I think it's so important to just make your list of what's essential, what's important to you, and if you're able to tick enough of those boxes within your budget, go for it, because things move so quickly, and a place that you tour on Saturday might not be available by Monday morning. I will say one thing that really helps in our favor is the conversion from the Australian dollar to the US dollar. I think it's 1 Australian dollar to 66 cents USD, which means that our money goes a lot further. I did want to include the prices in this video because I thought it would be helpful to give people a realistic picture of the current Sydney rental market. But that said, I do want to be clear. I know how privileged we are, and I am truly so grateful. This is our absolute dream apartment. We had been saving up for this move for years before we actually got here, and our visas are initially just for 12 months, so we're only guaranteed a year of living here. Because of that, we were willing to invest a little bit more in our apartment and the area we're living in particular, to try and enjoy this experience as much as possible. So there are plenty of other places we could have lived and loved, but we found what I thought was a very good deal, so we did pounce on it. I feel like we really lucked out. Our apartment, the amenities, the location, everything about it was just beyond what I thought we would be able to afford. I think a huge part of it was coming down to the Shire, which I absolutely love. Cronulla, I love this area. I'm obsessed with it. The prices are so much more affordable than the eastern and the northern beaches, at least in my experience. That said, it was not cheap by any stretch of the imagination. I understand this is a very pricey apartment, but cheaper than the other places that we were looking. But yeah, here we are. I absolutely love this apartment. I feel so lucky. I'm so grateful. I think it's such a steal. I think it is so special. I haven't seen anything like it. I am just so happy. If you are embarking on your own apartment hunting in Sydney journey, I am sending you good energy and good vibes. I know it's tough out there. I know I have lots of Australians who watch this this channel as well. So if you guys have any advice for people looking for rentals in Sydney, leave a comment. Let us know what you think. It's finally time. My next video will be our move-in vlog. I'm so excited to show you all around the apartment and get into the setup, the decorating, making this place feel like home. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was helpful. If you'd like to see more from me, make sure to subscribe because I upload new videos every week, and I will see you next time.